Hello, sweet friends. Thank you so much for stopping by Lavender and Lace today. I'm Alicia, and I hope you all are having a wonderful day so far. I have several really cute projects for you guys today. These are all going to be great for your tiered trays, or as you will see in just a minute, any other space that you have in your home that you can put smaller items. If you like farmhouse decor, rustic DIYs, simple and easy crafts, I hope you consider subscribing if you haven't already. Please give this video a thumbs up, that really helps my channel. And let's get started with today's projects. So this is my quote-unquote tiered tray that I like to use. It's a corner cabinet that my dad made a long time ago, and he actually passed away about 20 years ago now, and this is one of my treasures that I love to have in my home. And this one just works really well for smaller items. I don't have counter space for what you consider a traditional tier tray. This one I'm able to put things on the top as well as in these three little inset shelves. It has some storage on the bottom. There's not a whole lot of storage space down there, but I am able to put just a few of my items down there. And currently I still have it decorated for summer, but by the end of the video, all of my fall stuff will be out, so stick around. For this first project, I just started by removing everything from this little mini cutting board that I had picked up from Hobby Lobby. I just like to have a clean surface to DIY. And this one was in the spring selection and it was 60% off. So I paid maybe $1 or $2, if that, for this. And I thought this would be a super cute addition to my tiered tray this year. And I just used my heat gun to help me remove the bow and the glue and also the sticker on the back. And of course the design on the front was a paper cutout. I originally thought that this was all a wood piece and they had just painted it and had a decal on the front, but no such luck. So I just peeled that off as much as I could, started by sanding that down with my sanding block, and just realized that was going to take too long and just took this outside and used my electric sander and got a good clean surface and removed that paper so I could start to paint. And I just did one very light coat of my Waverly chalk paint in the color Snow White. And I also did a little bit of extra distressing around the edges with my sander as well, and I made sure not to cover those up with my paint. And I'm loving these napkins that I found at Hobby Lobby this year. I just love this design. It has a lot of different colors, and these are the 3-ply napkins, so just make sure that you remove all of the plies when you do any napkin projects like this. It will just make your life a whole lot easier. I just cut this down a little bit smaller to make it easier to apply to my cutting board, and I used the Elmer's glue stick once again. I have just recently discovered that I really like using the Elmer's glue stick for projects like this with napkins. It works better than the Mod Podge, it seems. It just doesn't get your napkin as wet. And I just used my brayer to help me press that down and get any wrinkles out. Just take my scissors and trim around the edges and use my large fingernail file to just sand away that extra napkin, and that just gives you a nice clean finish on your project. And I also went back in with my sanding block just a little further in on the edges and did some extra distressing. If you've watched any of my previous videos, you know how I like to distress things and make things look worn and rustic, but feel free to skip this step if you don't want to have your piece looking a little bit older. And I have some of this faux leather in my stash from the Dollar Tree. I like to have several different colors of this on hand. I think this just adds a really nice contrast and different texture to your projects. So I just cut out a piece that would fit on the bottom portion of my cutting board. And I went in with just a light coat of Mod Podge over my entire piece. This just helps seal down my napkin so it doesn't have any extra damage to it while it's in storage for the season. And I also put down some hot glue on that bottom section just to glue down my leather piece. And I used my brayer just to help me get that leather piece applied to the cutting board. It just kind of helps smooth out the hot glue under there so you don't have any lumps and ridges. And I took one of these small silkscreen transfers that I got from Chalk Couture, and I have not been able to find this particular design anymore. It came in a pack a couple of years ago, I believe. So I really like these. I wish they still had them so you guys could check those out. But I just kind of played around with the placement of this design until I decided where I wanted to put it. And this is where I wish that I would have one of the little mini squeegees to use for chalk paste. It was really hard to get this down with this larger one. So what I actually did was I used one of my Cricut spatulas to just help me get that in all the areas that I needed it to go down, and also removed some of that excess chalk paste. And that worked really well. I like just to use what I have on hand. And with any silkscreen transfer, you want to be sure that you wash off that chalk paste immediately. Just run that under some warm water. Make sure you get it off of all of the silkscreen part. And I just lay mine aside on a paper towel, sticky side up, until that dries. And just to add a little bit of more texture to my cutting board, I took some of this burlap ribbon that you can get from the Dollar Tree, just glued that down, and that helped to hide my seam. And I have some of these antique push pins in my stash, and the pin was actually too long for this cutting board. It would have went completely through if I just tried to hammer that in. So I just took a pair of these pliers and just applied pressure, turned the pin, applied pressure, turned the pin until I was able to cut off the actual pin part. And then I held those in place with some hot glue, and they did not sit flush with my cutting board. So I just covered those with a piece of paper towel and hammered those in to get those completely into my sign. And I just love the antique look that those add to this. And just to finish this one off, I just tied a simple shoelace bow and glued that to the top of this cutting board. What do you guys think about this one? This next project is so quick and easy, you could probably have it done in 30 minutes from start to finish. I just started with one of these mini rolling pins that came in a pack of 4, I believe, from Hobby Lobby. I've had those in my stash for quite some time, and if you can believe it, I didn't have one for fall. So I just took my pumpkin colored chalk paint from Waverly and just gave this one good coat. And I recently just ordered some of this surface wax from Chalk Couture, and this just helps your transfers to have a cleaner finish and no bleeding. And I thought this would be a perfect opportunity to try that. I had this really cute pumpkin one that came in that autumn pack once again, and I just applied that to the surface of my rolling pin. And with a round surface, I did have to apply just a little bit more pressure to make sure my transfer was stuck well to the rolling pin. And just carefully applied that chalk paste, making sure that I got it in all of the areas of the design, and just removed any of the excess and put that back in my container. And I had my little Cricut spatula on hand again, just in case I needed to use that. But this design was big enough that I could use this larger squeegee to get the chalk paste applied. And then just revealed that design, and that is my favorite part of using these transfers. And I think that surface wax did help to give this a cleaner finish. And just to add a little bit of texture and country charm to this project, I added some of this lace ribbon from the Dollar Tree, as well as some jute twine. And this project is super cute and so easy to do. I hope you try this one for your fall decor this year. I'm having so much fun with these mini projects, and I hope you guys have enjoyed them so far. For this next one, I just started by painting this small jelly jar with some of my Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster, and this is a quilted one, so it has a lot of detail and design on that jar, and I gave it 2 coats of that chalk paint. And then I had some of these small wooden apples. I think the package actually called these pumpkins, but I'm using them as apples. And I just painted those with 1 coat of my Waverly chalk paint in the color crimson. And I took some of my Waverly antique wax and just stained those stems. You could completely skip this step if you liked the natural look. And I used one of my very small paintbrushes. I think this one is actually for watercolor painting, but it worked really well just to get that stain on those stems. And I just took a Q-tip and just removed some of that excess stain. And then I went in with my jumbo nail file and just did some distressing on my jelly jar. And this just allows you to see that detail that's around the jar. And I just love the way that this looks. And I also went in with some of the antique wax and just kind of really scrubbed that onto the surface of the jar. And this just gave it that really antique look. I just used a very light amount of that antique wax. And I had some of these chalkboard stickers that came in a pack from the Dollar Tree, and just wrote on that with one of my acrylic paint pens. And that was the perfect size to go on the front of my apple basket. And then just to add a little bit of texture on the top, I just hot glued some jute twine, just wrapped this around, and I did a couple of layers in certain areas just to make sure I had all of the glass covered up. And then it was time just to add my apples to the basket, and this one is so cute. I just love these small projects like this. They come together so quick and easy, and this is going to be perfect on my tiered tray. This next project comes together so quick and easy. I think I even made these when I was a kid. I made these for my fairy houses that I used to like to do. I started by just going outside and trimming some branches off of a tree and just trim those down to the size that I would need to make my ladder. I did the main support beams were 8 inches, and I don't know exactly how long I cut the rungs. I just kind of put those 2 main pieces together and just laid things out and cut and measured as I needed them. And then I just glued everything together with some hot glue. And I had these little wooden chalkboard signs that you can get from the Dollar Tree, and this one did have the little mini clothespin on the back, so I just removed that and wrote whatever phrase that I wanted on my sign, and then I just took a small piece of jute twine and hot glued that on the back so that I will be able to hang this from the top of my ladder. And another one of my hobbies is crocheting. I learned how to do this probably 7 years ago, so I like to sit and crochet at night while we're watching TV, or if my husband's watching football or something like that. I usually have a project going, and I just thought it would be really cute to add a crocheted blanket to my ladder. And if you don't crochet, you could just use some scrap fabric that you might have on hand, or anything like that that would work for your ladder. This will just give that a little sweet touch and some extra texture. And I just kind of played around with my blanket once I got it finished to see how it was going to lay on that ladder with the sign. And this one will be ready to go on my tier tray with all of my other little mini items that I have been working on. I love taking items that I have had on hand for a while and maybe have just stored them away and haven't been using them, and that's exactly what I did with this little sign that I had. I just started by removing the screws from that and taking out that wooden plaque in the center there, and I did have to use a flathead screwdriver to kind of help me pop that out. They had used some hot glue to secure this to that inner frame. And they had also just put a piece of paper on the top, a little decorative accent. I don't know why manufacturers have to use so much paper and glue when they do these, but it was kind of challenging to remove that paper. I just used my heat gun and one of my Cricut scrapers and tried to remove that as best as I could, but I still wasn't able to completely remove that way. So I have some of the Goo Gone, and I just used that. I just put a little bit on that area that still had so much of that paper and adhesive. Just let that sit for a couple of minutes and rinse that with some hot water. And I was able to completely remove all of the adhesive that way. And once I had this ready, I took it outside and spray painted that with my Rust-Oleum hammered spray paint in the color dark bronze. This is one of my favorite colors right now. I've been using it a lot for several different projects. And while that was drying, I started working on the wooden plaque, and I have this pack of fall scrapbook paper, and I believe I picked this up at Michael's a couple of years ago. It was just on sale for $5 for the whole pack, and it will take me a while before I will ever use all of this, but I really liked this print. I just wanted to use the wooden portion of this, the boards. I didn't want to add the pumpkins because I will be adding my own little decorative pieces to this. So I just cut out my piece that would fit onto the wooden plaque and just used my Elmer's glue stick and got that put down to the top part of the sign. And then, you know me, I like to distress my projects, so I just took some of my antique wax and just went around the edges and just kind of darken those up a little bit. And I also went over just the top surface just to help blend that in with the edges a little bit. And I just love this paper. It already had a little bit of distressing, and it has some gold accents on there that I thought were really pretty. And I have these fall rub-on transfers that I found at Dollar Tree last year. I really hope they have these again. These are just gorgeous colors, and these look like watercolor prints. I love these. I think they match my decor style really well. So I just cut out the ones that I wanted to use for my sign and just kind of played around with the placement before I started burnishing those down. And to help me do that, I just used one of my little Cricut tools. This works really well, or you could use a jumbo popsicle stick. I know some of these rub-on transfers, if you order them online, they come with a burnishing tool. And I also just kind of use my fingernail to help me get those places down that may not stick well with that first attempt. And I just repeated that with my entire design and just carefully pull off that transferred paper. And then just to distress my entire piece, I went in with some of my Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster and just gave this a light distressing around all of the frame as well as the base of my stand. And just to reattach the wooden plaque, I just took some hot glue and glued that on the sides and just reattached the screws, and this was ready and set back in place. And just to finish this piece completely, I have another one of these small Chalk Couture silkscreen transfers. This pack was just perfect to do all of these tier tray DIYs. They were small and just worked really well for all of these mini pieces. And I just used some of the bright white chalk paste, and it fit perfectly on that little top area of my sign. And I just love that pumpkin on there. It's so cute. But the white was just a little too new looking, so I took some of my antique wax and just kind of aged that a little bit. And that is it for this one. Now that all of my DIY projects are complete, it is just time to start assembling everything on my tiered tray. And just to start that process, I had some of these floral picks from the Dollar Tree and one of the sweater pumpkin picks, and I just arranged those in one of my mason jars that I use to decorate my corner shelf with. And then I just started by adding everything else that I had made. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you enjoyed these projects and they inspire you to make some smaller DIYs for your tiered trays, or also known as a corner shelf like I have. And please give this video a thumbs up. That helps my channel to grow and lets others be able to find it easier. If you enjoyed today's projects, please share. And I will also link another video in the description box that you might like to watch as well. And I will see you all in the next one.